Yeah, 1-0
Ole,
USA.
ole, ole, ole. All right, yeah, World Cup time. We've got the Wrestling World Cup coming to Iowa December 10th and 11th. We've got Iran playing the United States as Dylan Wanagiel joins us. So we record this episode of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. He is the Vice President of Sports Properties and Special Events at Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, better known as basically the parent company of the New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia 76ers, and that Prudential Center, which is where we've got the second Garden State Grapple coming, presented by Spartan Combat. Dylan, welcome back to the program, and go USA as far as that goal scores with that the kickball they're playing out there.
Yes, sir. Timely goal by USA, up 1-0 as we record. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jason. I really appreciate it. Very excited to have another Garden State Grapple on the books and coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, this is, I guess, is it safe to say that this is the cousin of the old Grapple at the Garden? Because that's where you launched a wrestling event. We had the NCAA championships there. You were vital in that facility, and then you moved over to the Prudential Center post-COVID and said, you know what, I need to put another wrestling event here in this first-class facility. So let's give us a little history lesson on the Garden State Grapple and what made you say, you know what, I'm in a new building. I need to bring a wrestling event back to this place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fair statement. This is the cousin to the original Grapple at the Garden event. So, yeah, when I joined Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment in April of 2021, was tasked with handling some existing accounts like Seton Hall men's college basketball and boxing and some other college hoops events we have here. But really, it was, hey, what new things can you bring to our business? And certainly, the first thought was wrestling. Had tremendous success across the river in New York City with launching that regular season Grapple at the Garden event, which eventually led to Division I Nationals. So really, that was an easy task here, and just started working the phones, most notably with Coach Goodale from Rutgers, who's become a great friend over the years, and really putting our heads together. And he and Chris Bono out in Wisconsin really helped pull together last year's event. We also had North Carolina and Hofstra, and this year we've doubled from 4 Division I teams to 8 Division I teams. So it's been great. New Jersey has a tremendous fanatical wrestling fan base, great state for high school wrestling, and certainly the college wrestling with both Rutgers and Princeton and Rider doing so well. It's a great state for wrestling, period.
I just remember some of the things. I just have to remember every time I go to New Jersey for wrestling. Just you have to put away your your inhibitions when it comes to heckling, because it's just one of those things you hear and be like, "Yep, we are watching wrestling in New Jersey." So it's always fun to have Rutgers. I don't know if Princeton attracts the type of New Jersey heckler fan base that the Scarlet Knights and the Bronx to a lesser extent do. But this year you expanded the teams. You went with a Big Ten EIWA battle format here. So this was you had the idea. What went into picking these teams, and which team said, you know what, yeah, we want to do this?
Yeah, well, it's always great from a marketing perspective to have that interesting hook. You see it a lot in boxing and various other sports where they're relying on certain ethnicities versus other ethnicities, what have you. So here, again, kudos to Coach Goodale. This was really his vision of, hey, can we pull together Big Ten versus EIWA? But naturally, the tricky part is, we had a specific date where the building was available, and which schools were free to compete that weekend, and which schools would agree to face other schools. So that's really always the trickiest part. We're very fortunate to have Rutgers, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Indiana, and then Penn, Princeton, Binghamton, and Drexel on the EIWA side. And we really do feel like we have some very compelling matchups. Wisconsin, to their credit, they're coming all the way out here to New Jersey to face really two tough teams in Penn and Princeton, and everyone locally is extremely excited about the Rutgers versus Penn dual meet for sure.
Yeah, and one thing that we've got to set up, we're running formats, 2 sessions, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Indiana, Drexel, Rutgers, Penn, Wisconsin, Princeton, Michigan State, Binghamton is in that first session. Indiana, Binghamton, Rutgers, Drexel, Wisconsin, Penn, Michigan State, Princeton in the second session, approximately 4 o'clock. Running 4 across, selling the tickets directly across center section. So this is a big facility. So there's, I mean, it's cavernous at some point. So what's the mindset in terms of where you're selling the tickets and how to make sure that such a big facility does feel like it's got some energy into it?
That's a great point, Jason. Yeah, we've made a little tweak from last year. So basically the north and south end zones were initially not selling, or just kind of forcing everyone into the middle, which we do feel will help deliver more energy to the mats. for us, we feel like we've provided the fans an even better event than last year in terms of compelling matchups. And to your point, the fans last year were vocal to Coach Coleman Scott when they were displeased with one of his wrestler selections. So, hopefully this year everyone gets, exactly the individual matchups they're looking for. But we do feel like there'll be great energy in the room, and the fans will be vocal. I'm sure there'll be a lot of really close dual meets down to the last match, and then that's what we're looking for.
When we look at title sponsorship here, Spartan Combat's on board, and the crew that's been behind that, and then the players that are involved in that company have been big supporters of wrestling, not just in New York, nationally, internationally, and such. And talk about the relationship with Spartan Combat on this.
Yeah, I work closely with Nick Garone. He's someone I've known since the launch of the very first Grapple at the Garden way back in 2012, and he's always been a tremendous supporter for us. He's someone who's very well connected in the wrestling community. I know he works closely with Joe DeSena, really supports the wrestling community. They'll have event merchandise for sale and other Spartan Combat merchandise for sale, and I know they have a really cool video about some new products they have coming out that we'll be playing on the video board, which in fact is the world's largest high-definition video board for NBA and NHL arenas. So very proud of that. So it really gives the student athletes who are competing and the fans a very professional look and feel to the event.
Hey, I tell you, Dylan, it's also good to have you.
Sorry, my bad Long Island Nick Garone, a fellow Monarch from back in our respective days, although he's got a little bit of age on me. But,
you nailed it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Dylan, man. I really appreciate it.
He's gonna blow my phone up when he hears this. Now, we talk about events and sharing facilities. You talk about the date, December 4th, when you've got an National Hockey League facility and a team that's actually off to a torrid start here in the NHL season. As I'm spending a lot more time paying attention to hockey, more on the college puck side than I am the NHL, because if you're a Minnesota sports fan, the Wild just ripped your heart out last year, and before then the North Stars years and years ago. But balancing schedules, because the Devils aren't the only tenant there at the Prudential Center. So talk about balancing the schedule and getting this one jutted into that December 4th date. What moving pieces did you have to negotiate with here?
Yeah, no, we have, as you mentioned, Devils are on fire. Won 16 of their last 17, first place.
No pun intended, Devils on fire.
Yes, yeah, good one. Seton Hall men's college basketball is a great partner of ours. They've been here since the building opened. We're celebrating 15 years of Prudential Center being opened. We just had that 15-year anniversary and 40 years of Devils hockey. So outside of those two, we have a thriving concert and family entertainment business, a lot of special events. We hosted the 39th annual MTV Video Music Awards back in August and do a lot of religious events and other events for the community. So it's a very busy, world-class venue. But naturally, I did want to carve out a date on the calendar. We as a company did to continue this push into the college wrestling business. The reality is, these student athletes, for anyone who has ever seen wrestling or is just getting introduced to wrestling, you'll learn pretty quickly like how hard these young men and women's wrestling is blowing up now, and we look to have women return to the event in the future. These athletes just deserve this type of platform. If you may have seen on Twitter, there was a big blow up recently over the women's D1 basketball game between Indiana and Auburn out in Las Vegas that was held in a hotel
in a ballroom. I watched some of that on Flow Sports. I'm like, what is this?
It was honestly heartbreaking. So that's why we're taking tremendous pride in doing the exact opposite. I remember last year when the wrestlers from Wisconsin first walked into the room with Coach Bono, and they were all like, wow, it really did have a wow factor of how a professional arena looks with the huge video board and the LED ribbons and just the overall setup and feel. It was like, hey, like these guys work very hard, harder than arguably any college student athletes. So why shouldn't they get this platform? Why shouldn't they get the big stage? So it's something we're very excited to provide to these student athletes.
And one of the benefits there is most of these guys, when they have a chance, I mean, it's the only chance they get to wrestle in an arena is if they qualify for the NCAA championships or depending on where the Big Tens are. Usually those are on campus. So you get, Carver's a big place. Bryce Jordan Center could be a big place. But at the same point, they're not major league arenas these teams are competing in. So you're going to bring in, like last year, a Hofstra, which is in the, it's a greater New York area. But at the same point, it's not every day they got to compete at the Garden or they get to compete at the Prudential Center. And Madison, Wisconsin's facilities, Kohl Center, great facility. same point, it's not a major league sports arena like the Prudential Center is, or you're at your previous spot at MSG. So the opportunity to get familiarized with, here's the locker rooms, here's the layout of tunnels and such. I mean, when you're at the national championships, it's not just walk into a gym, there's the door and go. I mean, you've got tunnels, you've got elevators, you've got ushers, you've got places you're not allowed to go. So what do you and the staff do to make these athletes feel comfortable in a very unfamiliar environment for a lot of them?
Well, yeah, it's a great point, Jason. And first, I'll say that I do consistently hear from the Division I wrestling coaches how they like competing in events like this to help their athletes get ready for nationals in March, to give them that little different look and feel to your average dual meet, where again, they might be in some really great venues, but it's definitely different than what they see in March, especially the early round where there's 8 mats going simultaneously. That is a little bit of information overload and easy to get distracted and off your game. So to replicate that even to a smaller level, but at least it's a little different look, and getting them out of their comfort zone is something that the coaches really do like, and provides a unique challenge. For us, for the student athletes, it's really all about signage and making sure they're comfortable with where they can go and where they can't go. And thankfully, it's a pretty good setup here in terms of the distance from the locker rooms to the competition mats. Pretty close. No one got lost last year, so hopefully we'll be in the same boat this year.
Of course, a couple glimpses of the Devils locker room there as well.
For sure, yeah. We'll have one of the teams in what is referred to as the old Devils locker room. The Devils do have a brand new locker room that the team just uses, but their old locker room, which is still up to NHL standards, we'll have one of the teams competing in that room this weekend.
It's pretty sharp. Now, of course, this wouldn't be my show without the shameless promotion of yours truly. You brought me and Brian Hazard back for the mic time here. So what goes into that? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Like the reality is, could we get local PA people in New Jersey to do this? Of course. But the reality is, to me, if I'm going to run a world-class event, you need the absolute best in the business. And not blowing any smoke, that is you and Brian. I think the energy you both bring, the kind of different strong points of each of you, how you feed off each other. Like, we want the fans to walk in here and go, whoa, this event is pretty close to nationals. There's Jason Bryant and Brian Hazard on the mic, and there's a bunch of wrestlers that will absolutely be qualifiers for nationals. So for the New Jersey wrestling fan, what more would you want than great dual meets, great event presentation, great PA announcers to keep you informed of what's going on in all formats at the same time, and mostly delivering the energy when something cool happens, which is virtually every moment at an event like this.
Yeah, and not to take all the credit for things like this, so actually to take very little of the credit, but that blueprint, that presentation of an event like this leads to the opportunity to put the Prudential Center out there for bid cycles. We touched on this a little bit in last year's interview, but for those that were unaware, you are very adamant about the opportunity to get the NCAA championships at the Prudential Center.
Well, yeah, that's certainly the hope and the push here. That's why you launch a regular season event, because you have an eye towards the future and the long-term prize, whether it's the next bid cycle or the one after that. But the reality is New Jersey is a hotbed for wrestling. If you go on any sort of wrestling message boards on the internet, and you'll see New Jersey fans fighting with Pennsylvania fans and Iowa fans and California fans over who has the best high school championship. So they're a very passionate bunch. And when you look back at it, the D1 Nationals hasn't been in New Jersey since 1984 at the Brendan Byrne Arena, and before that it was at Jadwin Gym at Princeton a couple times. So it's been a
Brendan
long time.
Byrne. Was that the old name, or is that the current name for the Meadowlands? Because naming things change over the years.
No, that was the original name. Then it became Izod Center, and then Continental Airlines Arena, or actually no, Continental Airlines, and then Izod. And now it's closed for public events, but it's still open for filmings. You see a lot of TV shows and movies film in that arena as like a sound stage. It's very busy with that business, but there's no publicly ticketed events there anymore. So they're all here in Newark at the Prudential Center. Long-term D1 Nationals back in New Jersey, why not? There's a hotbed here. We would absolutely sell tickets. We're very close to the media capital of the world, basically 8 miles from Midtown Manhattan. So there's plenty to do in the surrounding areas. Fans, wrestling fans, come from all over the country to D1 Nationals, and we're right next to a major airport that is borderline walking distance, so would be really easy for out-of-town fans to get to this venue. So we'll certainly put our best foot forward on the next bid cycle for sure.
Yeah, keeping on that. So if you're coming into the Garden State Grapple or a potential NCAA championships, what are some other amenities that would be in the pitch? For example, I know here in Minneapolis we didn't get a chance to host it. We had the big arena, of course, a lot of everything. People worried about the cold weather. Well, there's all these skyways, for example. You don't actually have to go outside in the wintertime unless you got to shovel your driveway like I had to do with a broken snowblower prior to this interview. But there's things that the local region has that don't always show up in the pamphlet, or they're not always in the program. What are some things that Newark specifically has for the wrestling community for this event and future wrestling events?
Well, I would say the area of Newark is really developing quite a bit. As I mentioned, we had the MTV Video Music Awards back in August. They used a huge park right across the street for their big red carpet arrivals. It's a Newark City Park, which is it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. So when you think about maybe fan fest type activities, there are spaces adjacent to the arena for that. We're 2 blocks from Newark Penn Station, which is a 15-minute trade ride into Midtown Manhattan. So there's anything you would want from New York City, you can get here in a very quick train ride. So North Jersey is a very diverse area in terms of different ethnic communities, different backgrounds. So it's a really exciting time. This area is developing almost on a daily basis, Newark specifically. So we feel like we have a lot to offer, and we're hopeful for the future.
Now, we're touching on events held out east. Now, there's a guy that has a connection to that building, but his team plays in another building that's going to be hosting NCAAs in a future year, and that we're talking about Philadelphia. And, of course, the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers is Josh Harris. That's the name on the company that is the parent company of the Devils, the Sixers, the building. He wrestled at Penn. There's a wrestling tie to your company beyond just you. So what's that relationship been like to know that there's a wrestling guy here kind of overseeing things with these Major League Sports franchises?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just exciting. To be honest, I'm not in those meetings at that level, but the reality is I certainly know that amongst our managing partners, there's certainly an affinity for the sport of wrestling. And what I've seen in my close to 15 years of kind of studying this sport is there are so many people who've been incredibly successful in business. And among that group, those which are wrestlers, unanimously, they credit their success in business to their time on the wrestling mat and the hard work and discipline and hours and mental fortitude that was developed in all those years in a sweaty, smelly wrestling room, but they learned how to get the best out of themselves and how to deal with adversity. And I believe I read articles about Mr. Harris in the past with very similar attributes. These guys and women, they attribute their success in business to their time as wrestlers. And that's, for me, I know, hey, if I'm going to try something in wrestling, there is support at the highest level of, hey, let's give this a try. This is an awesome sport. Let's tell the story of this sport to a bigger community. Let's give these student athletes the platform they deserve.
Now, taking yourself out of the event business and looking at it from, you've become a wrestling fan, not just because you've got events at the buildings you've worked at, but what are some things that you feel that would be beneficial for the sport of wrestling to adopt, or things that you've seen maybe from having run college hockey events at the Garden or run basketball events there at the Prudential Center? What are some things you think wrestling could maybe use from other sports and say, we should implement this in how we do some certain events or kick off or showcase the sport?
Yeah, to me, it's really all about event presentation. Well, not all about, but a big thing is event presentation. And wrestling already does, some of this, but the more you can just create that cool atmosphere with the smoke machines and the fireworks and anything to add the bells and whistles. Like I recently was at UFC at MSG. Couple weeks back, and it really is amazing, like even in between matches, like the energy in the room. So the more that can be done, like you don't really want to always rely on, hey, not every match is going to be 2-1 with the last second reversal, or whatever, 3-2, 4-3. Like not every match is going to be awesome, so how can you just create just that energy and that vibe and that excitement beyond, every interaction on the mat. I think that's what people are looking for in their entertainment dollar. So we certainly are trying to do that on our end. And I think, kind of sport wide, the more that can be spent on event presentation, the better. And, whether it's, walkout music and things of that nature, like just that's really what fans like. Certainly the casuals, the hardcore wrestling fan, they probably don't want any of that. But, as you try to bring in casuals, if you really want to, everyone uses the phrase grow wrestling. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means converting casual fans to hardcore fans, people who better understand like how cool the environment really is. I think the other thing is like, and this might sound silly to your audience, but I remember the first time I heard an interviewer ask Frankie Edgar, hey, like, why isn't wrestling more popular? And he said, quite simply, not everyone understands the scoring. So for those casuals who don't understand how points are scored, I know there's already some of this. To me, there's no amount of explaining how points are scored that's too much. Like you have to teach casuals, hey, this is why the score is 4-3 right now. This is what riding time is like, and I'm sure you do that, but
oh, and part of that too, yeah. Because when I go down to Arkansas and announce at Little Rock, there are college people that are seeing college wrestling for the first time. They've only seen high school wrestling for a limited amount of time. So there, I'll explain the differences between college and high school. I'll explain the referee signals. Although on the flip side, I'll go up at nationals. I said something about a scoring or riding time or difference, and I remember a fan going, "We know," and I'm like, you get at NCAAs, you might have a little bit of less of that. But again, this is an opportunity where you got clubs coming in or kids may be seeing college. Thankfully, in New Jersey and in that area, there's a lot of college wrestling programs. So hopefully this isn't the first college wrestling event people are showing up to. But if it is, there's that opportunity to know, okay, this is a major league facility. This is going to be wrestlers you're going to see at the NCAA championships. This is going to be first-class presentation. You've got, of course, me and Brian announcing. But at the same point, the value of the event. So we're looking at ticket prices, $35. That seems fair for a 4-hour event. Now let's compare that ticket price to what you would find in a 4-hour event at anything else in this building. How fair is that for a ticket price? Whereas the wrestling fan is used to the $5 dual meet, or some places where they don't even charge, which kind of chaps me a little bit. Like, you can't give it away. It's got to be worth something. So setting ticket prices for things that a fan base that's typically less favorable to pay dollar amounts that are, more than double figures,
Yeah. No, that's a very fair question, Jason. And yeah, we do have seats starting at $20. So there is kind of 3 price points, a price for everybody. I think in a professional environment, people do understand if you want the absolute best seats, you pay a little bit more. If you just want to get in the door, okay, there are cheaper seats, further from the mat. So we were trying to accommodate everybody. I wanted to touch on something you just said about hopefully this isn't people's first dual meet. And that's true. In New Jersey, people have been to likely college wrestling either at Rutgers or Princeton or Rider or what have you. But it reminds me of something Michael Jordan said a long time ago when someone asked him, hey, like you play 82 games every year. Like, why is that? And he said, you never know when it's someone's first time watching you. I don't want to take a game off. I don't, something to that effect. He never took a night off because he didn't know when someone would be buying a ticket to watch him for the first time. So for us, we are treating this as if it's someone's maiden voyage into college wrestling. And we want to show them, like, you just want that wow factor, that holy crap factor. You want them to have that moment of, wow, I never knew it was going to be this cool. Like someone has the first time they walk into nationals and they see 8 mats going at once and they see 20,000 people at 11 a.m. on a Thursday screaming their heads off. We want to replicate that as best we can, for a regular season dual meet. So yeah, we got to treat this like it's the Super Bowl, no doubt.
Information, you can go at Pru Center, that's PRUcenter.com. You hit the events, Garden State Grapple. Tickets available December 4th, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Big Ten versus the EIWA. We're going to have 4 duels each session. I'll be there. Hazard will be there. Dylan's going to be there. We're going to have several ranked teams in action. The Jersey fans from Rutgers will be there, of course, chirping at everybody. I love that atmosphere. That's one thing you cannot put a value on when you come to New Jersey for wrestling is the added nth that you get from that fan base. It's high schools, college, it's international. You're going to get something when you come into the Garden State for wrestling. So that's an added benefit for the fan experience here. So any final words for us, Dylan?
No, as you said, it's very organic. You know, the fans they will they'll cheer and they'll voice their displeasure, but it is very organic, and it brings a lot of energy, and we love that. Like I said, this is just such a tremendous sport. I never wrestled a day in my life, yet I find myself addicted to this sport. I want to help it grow. Our company wants to help it grow. These are tremendous dual meets with long-term ramifications for the individual wrestlers as they try and qualify for nationals, and certainly from a team standpoint, you know, people love, you know, competing with their school across their chest and representing their school. Every time a kid wins, what do? They point to that school logo. They have a lot of pride in their school. So there's a lot of Jersey wrestlers on some of the other teams. So, you know, when you have like Rutgers or Princeton against maybe a Jersey kid from some other school, there's a rivalry there. They probably wrestled against each other in high school at some point. So it's a really it's an exciting event. I encourage everyone to come out. Help grow the sport. Ticket prices for every budget. So we'll see you there.
Lastly, actually, if we neglected to bring us up, streaming options. What do we got?
Yeah, Big Ten Network Plus is providing streaming for all 4 mats, all 8 dual meets. So you do need a subscription to Big Ten Network Plus to view that. But anyone within driving distance, we hope you come out to support the sport in person and bring that energy that the wrestling fans always bring.
Dylan Wanagiel of the Prudential Center. Looking forward to it.
Same here, Jason. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you for your time.